Okay, this is gonna be a first. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. As you can see, this is a different format from what you usually see on my channel. If you do follow my channel before this video is uploaded, I don't know. As you can tell, I am not used to doing something like this, but I want to try and expand my channel, just bringing a bit of different content around and just see how that goes. Will it continue in a year's time? I don't know. We'll have to see. So for this particular series, I am wanting to expand a Facebook page that I have called Dear Diabetic. Dear Diabetic is a kind of vlogging page that I have connected to my Facebook to share my experiences with diabetes, if you didn't know that already. With this series, I want to share some misconceptions that diabetes can have, share my experiences, open myself up to the world a bit more about it, because I think there's not enough information shared about diabetes and what it actually feels like and what it actually does, but also just to give you some like well-known facts about it, because why not? Are people like me interesting? I don't know. If you're at all interested about what I just happened to post on my Dear Diabetic page, I will leave a link to the Facebook page down in the description. If you like it, please follow, and then feel free to wait and see what I post occasionally, I guess. What is diabetes? Diabetes occurs when your pancreas, which looks like a leaf-shaped organ, stops producing insulin, and that insulin controls the amount of glucose that you have in your body. When it stops working or the insulin becomes ineffective, it can make your blood sugars go crazy. Like, you can have too much sugar in your blood. I feel it in my blood. And because of the lack of insulin or the non-existence of insulin, that's what causes the diabetes. How common is diabetes? I'd say it's reasonably uncommon. It's reasonably common. It's not uncommon per se. I'd say it's more common if you are familiar with diabetes yourself, as for example, such as family members or you know friends who do have diabetes. But I think type 2 diabetes are a lot more common than type 1, and it's a lot more common because that's what the media always covers, more likely. Not that it's a bad thing, but come on, give it for the type 1 diabetics over here. How many types of diabetes are there? As mentioned before, there is type 1 diabetes, which is where you tend to get it in childhood, late childhood, teenage, more likely, and that is where your pancreas stops producing insulin and is debated as to being the most dangerous type. There's type 2 diabetes, which again, as previously mentioned before, is where your pancreas can still produce insulin, but the insulin just isn't becoming effective enough. And that is one that's probably the most common, I would say. And the third type is, let me have a look at it. Because, yeah, I'm a diabetic, but I still need to learn about other diabetic stuff, is gestational diabetes. Now, this type of diabetes is one that can develop with pregnant women because of the growth of the baby and your change in diet. You can sometimes contract diabetes. Contract diabetes? That don't make sense. But this type of diabetes does go away when the baby is born, but it can increase your risk of having type 2 diabetes. But you can also be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes during pregnancy. Diabetes is a weird thing. It's a mystical thing. It's a fantasy. It's not a myth, but it's a weird thing. It's a weird development that can happen at any time of life. And there is another type of diabetes called, again, I have to look it up because I didn't know this one existed until today. Monogenic diabetes, which is an inherited form of diabetes that can stem from cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis, I'm not too familiar with it. I remember studying it in school, but it just goes to show how much attention I paid to it. I'm so sorry. Can any more illnesses stem from diabetes? Yes, it can. This is how dangerous it is. Like, people say, oh, it's diabetes. I'm like, oh, but please believe me, there is so much more. So when you go for clinic appointments, you have to be tested for blood pressure, thyroid. You have to make sure that your blood sugars are perfect. You have to be weighed. You have to be measured. But also you can be more prone to getting things such as, and I will get my list for this, heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, eye problems, dental disease, nerve damage, and foot problems. And I'll explain why. When you are a diabetic, because it is a chronic illness, your immune system is compromised. This means that when there is flu season or coronavirus or any other kind of illness, or if you catch an infection, you are more likely to get more ill from it. And because it is a compromised immune system, the average person, when they, for example, cut their leg, are pretty fine, they tend to it. But for a diabetic, because a leg, for example, is so close to the feet, if your cut gets infected, you have to be really careful, and your body just can't cope with it as a diabetic. So you have to be really careful. There's so many other illnesses that can stem from it, such as gastroparesis. And the way to cope with that is to make sure that you have regular blood sugars, which sounds easy on paper, but trust me, it's not. Why is my life like this? But basically, as a diabetic, you are more prone to be getting more diseases if you do not take care of your blood sugars and if you are just not careful with your body. But it's not just diabetics. Everyone should just be careful of everything, because nobody wants to get ill. You see it every day. It's not nice. You don't want to be in that situation, because you won't be able to live life the way that you want to in the long run. What treatments do you have for diabetics? Well, as previously mentioned briefly, there are different types of treatments for different types of diabetes. So for type 1 diabetics, you have insulin injections or an insulin pump. So for example, I've got the insulin pump. Now, the insulin is automatically pushed forward through this wire and it goes into a needle called a cannula. I'm not going to show you that for the sake of those who don't like needles. I don't want to show you that. And I have a blood disclaimer, so well done, me. Not only with blood monitors, but you also have different variations of medication. What is a blood sugar machine? So this is an interesting one. I'll bring mine out for display. A blood monitor, as you can see right here, is a system which records your blood sugar intake. So what you would do, you would prick your finger, these three. These fingers are not needed, they're important, but I don't know why, I never really asked. They are really important for like more everyday tasks, and they're a lot more sensitive. Why am I talking to you about fingers? What is my life? Anyway, so to measure your blood sugars, you have a special monitor which can read it, and you would need some strips. Boom, a little blood testing strip. You have to put the strip in, as the strip is the device, material, object that can contain the blood sugars and can send the readings to the blood monitor. You see, kids, this was in the days before iPhones and stuff, as I'm talking to you now on an iPhone. Then you prick your finger. Sorry if you did see a little bit of blood, I should have pre-warned you, but it's my life. So as you can see, 7.9, that is a pretty good reading, and it does vary the blood sugars. So a blood monitor as a whole is a device that reads your blood sugar levels when you test them. And as you can see, yes, it does look like a phone, and yes, it does have Bluetooth, funnily enough. And the amount of people that says, put your phone away, no phones in the classroom. And I have to be there like, miss, it's not a phone, it's a blood monitor. I don't care, you put it away. But I'll die without it. Okay, it's not that dramatic, but you've got the idea. How long can you have diabetes? The answer is forever. You can never be cured of diabetes. But you can sometimes prevent type 2 diabetes with a good diet, good exercise, making better choices. You can help prevent it. But for people like me with type 1 diabetes, it never goes. But that is going to conclude today's video. Thank you all for joining. If you really want to find out more about like my personal experiences with diabetes, I will leave the description for the Dear Diabetic page in the description below. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe and I'll see you soon. Bye.